Greetings and welcome back to LA Quill. There's a moment that every writer knows. Whether you're just starting out or you've been doing this for years, you've built something in your mind that feels alive. You know your characters, you know the shape of the story, you can almost feel the world breathing around you. And then you sit down to write the first chapter, and nothing happens. The page just stares back at you, blank, silent, waiting. And suddenly, all of that excitement, the months of planning, the ideas, the inspiration, it feels like it's collapsed under its own weight. Because now it has become real. Now it has to exist outside your imagination. And that's where things start to feel impossible. That first chapter carries a kind of pressure that no other part of the book does. It's not just another scene. It's the doorway. It's the invitation. It's the promise you're making to your reader about what kind of story they're going to step into. It has to introduce your world and establish tone. And it has to give your readers a reason to care. And somewhere in the back of your mind, there's this quiet voice saying, if you don't get this right, none of the rest matters. And that voice, it's exactly what stops you. Because perfection is a terrible place to begin. So here's something that doesn't get said often enough in writing advice. The first chapter you write is almost never the first chapter your reader will see. Not really. What readers see is a version that has been shaped and reshaped again. It's been rewritten and refined and polished up. Sometimes it's been completely reimagined. But what you're trying to write right now, that's not the final version. That's the first step. And first steps are allowed to be messy. They're allowed to be uncertain. They're allowed to wibble wobble a little bit. One of the biggest misconceptions about writing, especially in fantasy, is that the magic has to be there immediately, right now, today. That the opening has to feel rich and immersive and powerful from the very first line. But what most readers don't see is that those opening lines were often the last thing the author perfected. The very last thing. Because you can't fully understand the beginning of your story until you've explored the middle. Until you've lived through the ending. Until you've watched your characters change and grow and make choices you didn't expect. So when you sit down to write your first chapter, you're not writing the definitive version of your story's beginning. You're writing a placeholder. And that might sound strange, but it's actually really freeing. Because if it's just a placeholder, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be clever. It doesn't even have to be good. It just has to exist right now. Think of it this way. Your first chapter isn't there to impress anyone yet. It's there to open the door so that you can walk through it. Because until something is written, until something's on the page, no matter how rough or how awkward or how incomplete, you don't actually have anything to work with. You can't refine what doesn't exist. And this is where a lot of writers get stuck. They try to build the perfect doorway before they've even stepped into the house. And this is where a lot of things fall apart. So instead of tackling that beginning and forcing yourself to make it perfect right out of the gate, give yourself permission to write something imperfect. Let your characters enter the scene without worrying about whether the description is right. Let them speak, even if the dialogue feels stiff. Let the world exist in broad strokes, even if the details aren't fully formed. Because what you're doing in that moment isn't finishing the story, it's discovering it. You're in the process of discovery. You're discovering what your story will be. Let it happen. There's something incredibly important that happens when you stop trying to get it right and start allowing it to just be a rough draft. Your characters begin to move. They begin to speak in ways you didn't entirely plan out. And they start making choices that surprise you. And suddenly the story isn't something you're forcing onto the page, it's something you're uncovering, something you're discovering. And that only happens when you let go of pressure. Fantasy writing, in particular, can make this even harder because you're not just introducing a character, right? You're introducing an entire world. Magic systems, cultures, histories, rules that the reader needs to understand. It's easy to feel like you have to explain everything right away, but you don't. In fact, trying to explain everything in your first chapter is the fastest way to lose the momentum entirely. Readers don't need the entire world handed to them at once. They just need a moment, a snippet, a glimpse, a reason to keep turning that page. So instead of trying to build the whole world in one chapter, focus on something smaller, a single scene or a single conflict, a single character who wants something. Let the world reveal itself naturally as the story unfolds before you. And if even that feels like it's just too much, here's something that actually might help. You don't have to start with the first chapter. You don't. You don't have to write that one first. There's this idea that writing a book has to happen in order, in the way the reader would consume it. That chapter 1 must come first, and everything else follows neatly behind. But storytelling doesn't work that way. Sometimes the easiest place to begin is the place that feels most alive to you. Maybe it's a confrontation halfway through the story, a quiet moment between two characters that you can already hear clearly in your mind. Maybe it's the scene where everything changes. Start there. Write the part that excites you, the part that feels clear, the part that makes you want to sit down and actually put words on the page. Because once you've written something, the rest becomes easier. Momentum matters more than putting things perfectly in order right at the beginning. And here's the interesting thing. Once you've written a few chapters, once you've spent time inside your story, listening to your characters, watching how the world behaves, you'll come back to that first chapter with a completely different perspective. You'll know what matters. You'll know what needs to be set up. You'll understand the tone in a way you couldn't have before. And that's when you write the real beginnings. But you can't get there if you never start. So if you're sitting there right now, staring at the blank page, driving yourself nuts, feeling like the first chapter has to carry the weight of the entire story, I want you to take that weight off your shoulders entirely. You're not writing that perfect opening. You're writing the first draft. Let it be clunky. Let it be awkward. Let it be incomplete. No story's perfect, even in its finished form. Why should a first draft of a first chapter be any different? Now, because every story you've ever loved has started that way, your story can start that way too. Not as something polished and perfect, but as something uncertain, something human, something that needs time to grow into itself. And your story deserves that space. So write the version where your characters simply walk into the room. Write the version where the world is only half formed. Write the version where you're not quite sure what happens next, but you're certainly willing to find out. Because that's where the real magic is. Not in getting it right the first time, but in being willing to begin. And that's our tale from LA Quill today. What part of starting a new story feels the hardest to you right now? Until next time, may your stories always be magical.